Who first got me into Ma Kali, I guess you can say got me into, but how I found the Divine Mother Kali was through an offhand reference to her as the Divine Mother in a work by Yogananda. Um, and you know what? I think it was by Kriyananda. It was Kriyananda's remembering Yogananda's life in Encinitas, California. There we go. And it was it was when Yogananda was going to a bakery and he was going to enjoy some nice cakes, some kind of strange Scottish cakes that this particular like home baker made that he really liked, and he was going to enjoy them with the Divine Mother. And when he got there, it turns the woman who bakes them at her house said, "Oh, I just sold the last batch. I completely forgot about your order." So Yogananda goes back to his car, sits in his car, and says, "What happened, Divine Mother? I thought we were going to enjoy these cakes." And then it's it's funny because it gets very miracle-y, but it's just over cakes. But he said that Yogananda described that this light kind of came down onto this person's house that he saw from the sky, and then the woman comes running out and she realized that she had some cakes that she had put aside, that she had forgotten that she had put aside, and she brought his cakes out to him. I think a lot of the time with a lot of these humbling stories, a lot of these small stories by Kriyananda and about Yogananda's life as Yogananda told it to Kriyananda, and even through self-realization fellowship. Um, I think a lot of like little miracles with the Divine Mother or in life, they don't have to be big. They can be miraculous and be very plain, be very basic. But that story, I think, is one of the first times I bumped into the idea of the Divine Mother, and that hit a note with me like immediately. Very just like that. It's almost like something just connected in my head, like God as the Divine Mother, as the Divine Mother Kali, specifically, and something just clicked in my head. And I started researching. Okay, this was 12 years ago. I think it was about 12 years ago, about when I was about 20, 21. And I started researching Kali more, and I started to realize like a lot of this made sense to my heart and my mind. So if a tradition, a god, a goddess, a spirit, a belief system, a religion, if it makes sense to your heart and your mind, if the click happens in both those places and you're not coerced in some way, family, friends, or it's not based in fear, if all these things are true for whatever you believe or whatever you practice or whichever beings that you work with or worship, if these things are true, then you're probably living a healthy spiritual path, emotionally and spiritually. But back to the Divine Mother Kali. So I didn't, I didn't connect me being a very liberal person to worshiping God as the Divine Mother. I didn't really make these connections in my head, but later on, after I started making videos about Kali, more and more and more. I started getting contacted from people, women from different parts of the world who see and saw um, Kali as this emancipatory divine feminine figure. Um, by women that are in Muslim countries or in the United States or somewhere else, in India. There was this emancipatory nature to Ma Kali for many of these women that I've talked to, at least messaged with, if not talked to. That it didn't have the same connection for me in my head. There was no political or cultural or gender role for Ma Kali in my head beyond the Divine Mother. Mother is that is very feminine, that's gender based, but it wasn't connected to, for me it was reaching out to the divine in that way. It wasn't really connected to like what's happening on the earth, what people are experiencing on the earth. But I started to realize that Kali, the Divine Mother Kali, is this very emancipatory female goddess figure, empowering, divine feminine female goddess figure. I've always had a very mother relationship with her, so, and I never really made that connection. Plus, I'm a white male, so I don't really know about um, the struggle of females of color in other countries. So you know, we all have a different connection to Divine Mother, but it made sense, and it does make sense that she is that. Um, and what I love about what Ma Kali looks like and her symbols, and having the skulls around her neck, sword, multiple arms, a bow and arrows, and on top of her, putting her foot on her husband, and tongue lolling out, um, holding a head, and holding that Raktabija, head, the demon of desire, in one hand, and another hand holding a dish, gathering the blood. Very scary to a lot of other traditions. Never was to me, but the idea is that it is scary, and it's funny in the modern time. It's a different kind of click, because the whole point of, not the whole point, but quite a bit of the point of her looking so fierce and scary and having all of these terrifying things that she has, and they're all very symbolic, and I've explained all the different symbols in other videos. But part of the purpose of all these things is to scare away anybody who isn't ready to think about what every single one of these things mean. If you're not ready to wrap your head around or think hard enough to figure out what these symbols mean, then you're supposed to be scared away. It's not so much, don't go beyond this boundary. If you have fear, if you're afraid of the dark, if you're not willing to accept the darker part of yourself, it's that too. But if you're not willing to think about what this stuff is, and you just see it on the surface, then you should be afraid. But not it's striking a more primal fear, in that it's striking that fear, but if it hits that fear and it doesn't spark your intellectual interest or your mind's interest, the thinking part of your brain to figure out what all these things mean. If you're more animal based, then you should be afraid. You shouldn't. If you're afraid to think, you shouldn't follow Ma Kali. In recent times, it's been a lot of people are embracing her, like, oh, look how badass she is. Like, she's so powerful. She has all this stuff. She's standing on Shiva. She has these heads around her neck. She's so powerful and badass and metal, and we love her. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that used to be the whole, part of the purpose was to scare people away who weren't willing to think. And then now people who don't want to think about the symbols are liking it because it's badass. So it's that purpose of Ma Kali looking like this and having these things has kind of shifted with the generation, these many generations since these symbols first formed as how we see the Divine Mother. But I like it. But it's important to realize that you should still think about the symbols and not just think that it's cool. Thinking about it more deeply is definitely, all these women who view and experience Ma Kali and the Divine Mother as being an emancipatory goddess, a freeing goddess of women who are oppressed. That is thinking more deeply about it. That's not just seeing the skulls around her neck and saying, "Ooh, that's cool." So that is thinking more deeply about it. There's so many levels to the symbols and what she has on her, and to Ma Kali herself, and she is as diverse, as cruel, and as beautiful and loving as nature itself. Yet she is conscious nature, and nature beyond nature, the cause of nature, the Divine Mother of the multiverse. We are all in her womb. Of course, I would say that as a Shakta, and another trend that I've noticed is that I don't really like saying that I work with Kali like I used to. I consider myself as I worship her. So working with her is like, it's just kind of an acquaintance. You might work with a spirit or a god, it's, I might work every now and then. I might, reach out to them every now and then. But if you worship Ma Kali, it's more than working with. So there's this kind of like neo-pagan and new spiritual kind of thing of thinking about working with spirits, working with gods instead of worshiping. That's good. I mean, you don't always have to worship spirits or gods or goddesses, but know the difference. Know how close you are to a being, God, goddess, spirit, what they are to you in your cosmology and your understanding of the multiverse or universe, and how deep you want the relationship to go and how deep the relationship is emotionally and spiritually. If they mean way more than more to you than an acquaintance, or even mean more to you than yourself, then that's more like worship, which I worship Ma Kali. I don't just work with, I worship. But like I said, I would say that as a Shakta. But Ma Kali has always made the most sense to me as the Divine Mother being the source, and all of it just clicks. And I hope that there's some of you out there that she clicks in some of the ways that I've talked about as well. If you're still watching, she probably does. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. Like this video, hit that thumbs up down there, it really helps out the channel. Feel free to leave a comment. I try to respond to all comments that are polite, eventually. But yeah, and you can share this video wherever you like. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.